Hi, you are watching Reddit Stories. I cheated for money and fell in love with my own lie. If you'd asked me 10 years ago whether I considered myself a bad person, I would have said no. I was just smart, smarter than most people, smarter than the system, smarter than the suckers who kept trying to win a game that was clearly rigged. I never meant to become a professional liar. It just sort of happened. I was 24 when I ran my first real scam, not some childhood prank or selling knockoff sneakers in high school. I mean the kind of con that makes your pulse race and your palms sweat, because if you get caught, your life's over. It started with a job I didn't get. I'd spent months interviewing for a junior analyst position at this mid-sized finance firm in Boston. I had prepped like crazy, worn my only decent suit, even smiled like I wasn't drowning in $89,000 of student debt. Final interview. Nailed it. Or so I thought. A week later, I got a generic rejection email. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. We appreciate your interest. Bullshit. I found out later that the guy who got the job was the son of one of the partners. He'd shown up late to the interview, didn't even have a degree yet. But his last name was right. That's when something inside me cracked. It was like a window opened, not to let air in, but to show me that everything outside was already fake. Meritocracy was a joke. Rules were for the poor. Morals were for people who could afford them. So I made a fake LinkedIn profile. I called him Ethan Rhodes. He had a CFA, an MBA from Wharton, and a glowing work history from companies that had gone bankrupt 5 years ago. I used an AI-generated photo of a confident-looking guy with square glasses and perfect teeth. I applied to remote financial consulting gigs under that identity. Within a week, I had 4 interviews. By week 2, I'd signed my first $3,000 contract helping a startup in Arizona optimize their burn rate, whatever that meant. I Googled fast. I bullshitted faster, and they ate it up. The thing about lying, if you're good at it, is that it's addictive. That first client gave me a referral, then another. Within 6 months, I had a fake company, fake email signatures, and fake press releases. I paid a guy on Fiverr to design an entire fake corporate website with glowing testimonials from non-existent CEOs. I was making more money than I'd ever dreamed of. And I didn't feel guilty. Not at first. Because I told myself, these companies don't care. They want to be lied to. They want a guy who sounds confident, who can say pivot strategy and value prop without blinking. They never ask for proof, just the right keywords. I wasn't hurting anyone, I said. I was just bending reality a little. My real name is Ian, by the way. Ian March. But even now, that name feels foreign. Ethan Rhodes, my alias, made 6 figures by age 25. He flew first class, stayed in hotels with marble sinks, ate sea urchin like he enjoyed it. He posted filtered photos of wine glasses beside foreign cityscapes. Ian rode the subway with a hole in his shoe. Guess which one I chose to be? I remember the first time I cheated someone who really didn't deserve it. Her name was Marcy. She ran a small publishing business out of her apartment in Portland. She hired me, Ethan, to help her pitch to investors. I think she borrowed money from her sister to pay me the $5,000 fee. I was supposed to help her write her pitch deck. Instead, I copy-pasted slides from an old tech deck I'd found online and disappeared after the second Zoom call. Blocked her. Closed that email. Cashed out the crypto wallet. She emailed me. Pleaded. I trusted you, please. I didn't have that kind of money. I just wanted to make my parents proud. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I still think about her sometimes. But the truth is, once you step into that world, the world of shortcuts, of masks, of easy money, it's hard to leave. You start telling yourself everyone would do it if they could, that you're just ahead of the curve. And for a while, I was. Until the man in the black car pulled up outside my apartment and offered me $200,000 to break someone's heart. That's when the story really began. And that's what I'm about to tell you. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I'd just gotten back from a fake business trip in Prague, and there was still a phony luggage tag on my duffel bag. I'd been lying professionally for 6 years. 6 years of fake names, forged contracts, carefully crafted email threads, AI-altered voices on burner phones. I'd stopped calling it scamming. It was freelance consulting now, my brain's way of making the con sound clean. But I wasn't expecting him. The man in the black car. I was coming back to my apartment in Cambridge, the small one above the pizza place, the one with the weird mold spot in the shower I never reported. I noticed the car parked right in front of the fire hydrant. Clean, black, expensive. At first, I thought it was some Uber Black on standby for a tech bro nearby. I fumbled for my keys. Then the back window rolled down. A voice said, "Ian March?" I froze. Nobody used that name in my world anymore. I didn't even use it when I ordered takeout. Hearing it out loud was like someone throwing a rock through the glass of my made-up life. I turned slowly. The man was in his 50s, maybe 60s, with silver hair slicked back and an ageless face that screamed old money. Italian leather gloves. A voice like someone who never had to raise it to get what he wanted. "How do you know that name?" I asked. He smiled, like it amused him that I even bothered asking. "Get in the car." "No chance." He said my real name again, my address, my fake company names, my crypto wallet aliases. Then he said something that chilled my bones. "You're good. Too good to waste on 5,000 scams. I've got a job for you, one job, a clean payout." I stood there staring at him. He didn't threaten me. Didn't say he'd turn me in. He didn't have to. The calm confidence told me he already owned my truth. The truth I buried. 15 minutes, he said, patting the leather beside him. Or I assume the IRS and the FBI might be interested in what Ethan Rhodes has been up to. I got in the car. Because I'm not a hero. Because the man knew my pressure point. Fear. The fear of losing everything I'd built, even if it was all fake. We didn't drive far. He took me to a private club near Beacon Hill, the kind of place with no signage and a doorman who doesn't blink when someone in jeans walks in beside a senator. The man led me through a hallway into a wood-paneled room with a fireplace crackling even though it was June. There was tea waiting. Not whiskey, not champagne. Tea. He poured it himself, told me to sit. "My name is Richard Monroe," he said. "You won't find anything useful about me online, so don't bother looking. But what you do need to know is this. I have a problem. A personal one. And I need someone with your talents." I didn't speak. He continued. "My daughter, Claire, she's 28, brilliant, empathetic, too empathetic. She's wasting her life dating parasites and activists who convince her they care, take her money, and vanish." He sipped his tea. "She needs to fall in love with someone who isn't real, someone perfect, someone designed to hurt her, not physically, emotionally. She needs to have her heart broken so thoroughly that she never falls for a lie again." I laughed, dry and unsure. "You want me to pretend to love your daughter and then break up with her?" "Not pretend," he said. "Become what she wants. Embed. Live it. 6 months. I'll pay you $200,000, half up front." "You want me to manipulate your own daughter for money?" "I want to save her from herself," he replied. I leaned back. This wasn't a scam. This was something worse. Personal, intimate, twisted. I've done corporate fraud, crypto cons, fake resumes. This is different. "Yes," he said. "This one matters." I didn't say yes that night, but I didn't say no either. He gave me a folder. Inside was Claire's entire life. Photos, essays, dating history, Spotify playlists, Instagram captions, psychiatric evaluations, handwritten journal entries. He'd been collecting for years. She was beautiful, in the quiet way. Soft eyes, curly dark hair, no makeup in most photos. She read Rilke, quoted Vonnegut, posted poems with barely any likes. She was. Not what I expected. And that made it worse. I spent the next week pacing, drinking, staring at the money in the crypto wallet he'd already transferred. Half of 200,000 just sitting there. No strings attached, except the kind wrapped around someone's heart. I told myself I wouldn't do it. I told myself it was too far. But one night, drunk and bitter, I reread the rejection email from that first job I lost. The one that started all of this. And I opened the folder again. There was a line Claire had written in one of her old blog posts. I think we fall in love with people not because of who they are, but because they show us who we want to be. That was the moment I broke, because I knew exactly how to do it. I knew how to become that person. 2 weeks later, I walked into a cozy little bookstore cafe in Somerville, a place Claire went every Thursday at 6 p.m. I wore a gray sweater, glasses I didn't need, and carried a used copy of Letters to a Young Poet. She was already there, reading, alone. I sat one table over, waited 23 minutes, then leaned over and said, I'm sorry. Is that the Rilke edition with the John Mood translation? She looked up, eyes lighting up with that flicker of shared obscurity. Yes, she said, surprised. How'd you know? I smiled the way I'd practiced, and I said the first lie that would change everything. It's my favorite book. Becoming someone else isn't just acting, it's erasing. You don't build a new persona on top of your real self. You tear the old one down, brick by brick, until there's nothing left that doesn't serve the lie. By the time I saw Claire for the third time, I wasn't Ian March anymore. I was Rowan Ellis, 32 years old, part-time poetry teacher, full-time dreamer. I had a vague backstory in Vermont, parents who passed too young, a past breakup I was still healing from, and a deep love for underappreciated writers and indie films that made you cry at the end. It was everything Claire wanted, and it was all fake. She told me once, a few weeks into knowing each other, that she never trusted perfect people. They're always hiding something, she said. So I gave myself flaws. Fake ones, of course, small, carefully chosen imperfections to make me seem real. I forgot names sometimes. I overshared when I was nervous. I drank too much coffee, said I got lost in my own head, and once admitted I cried during a documentary about honeybees. She loved that. She said I felt safe, and it made me want to vomit. But I didn't, because I was playing a role and getting paid 6 figures to play it well. My days became routines wrapped in performance. I'd text her every morning with some poetic observation I Googled the night before. The rain smells like petrichor this morning. Wish you were here to smell it with me. She'd reply with a heart. I studied everything about her. I knew what coffee she'd order before she said it. I memorized her favorite authors, her fears, her favorite word, tender, and even the scar on her elbow from falling off a swing at age 7. The scary part? It wasn't hard. Claire didn't have walls. She didn't need manipulation. She wanted to love someone, anyone, and I filled the shape. The first time she touched my hand, not as a greeting, not by accident, but because she wanted to, something shifted. We were sitting in the grass outside a film screening. She was barefoot, her hair pulled into a lazy bun, her eyes glassy from the ending of a sad black and white movie where the main character never gets to say goodbye. I'm glad you're not like other guys, she said. I wanted to laugh, or cry, or run. Instead, I just said, me too. And she reached for my hand and held it like it belonged to her. Like I belonged to her. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I felt guilty, not yet, but because I realized the plan was working too well. Claire was falling for me. And worse, I didn't hate it. You have to understand something. Before Claire, I never kept anyone around longer than I had to. My relationships were shallow, transactional. I didn't believe in intimacy. Intimacy was leverage, and I never let anyone have any over me. But with her, I started forgetting what was scripted and what wasn't. We laughed, genuinely. We shared stories. Some were true. Some were inventions I believed in so hard I forgot I'd made them up. Like the time I told her about my dad teaching me how to ride a bike in the middle of a thunderstorm. That never happened. But the way she reacted, touched, amused, emotional, made it feel real. And soon, I wasn't sure if I was faking that memory for her or for me. 3 months in, she invited me to meet her friends. That was a first. No one I scammed had ever brought me into their real life. I almost backed out, but I didn't, because Rowan Ellis was ready. Because lying was easier than silence. That night, after everyone had left, Claire and I walked back to her apartment. She held my arm. She talked about how good it felt to finally have something real. And then she asked me, "Why me?" I should have had an answer ready. Instead, I just stared at her, at the freckles on her nose, the softness in her voice, the belief in her eyes. The lie came slowly, gently, like I'd rehearsed it in a dream. Because you're the first person I haven't had to lie to. She kissed me. Not a fast, desperate kiss. A soft one, like she wanted it to mean something. And God help me. I kissed her back like I meant it too. That night, we slept together for the first time. And I don't mean just sex. I mean the whole thing. Arms tangled, breath synchronized, silent moments where the space between our bodies felt like home. I woke up around 4 a.m. and watched her sleep. Her hair messy, her mouth slightly open. One hand still gripping my shirt like she was afraid I'd vanish. And that's when it hit me. I had no exit strategy. No plan for what would happen when the 6 months were over. No idea how I was supposed to break her heart and walk away. Because this wasn't a scam anymore. It was a life. One I didn't deserve. Somewhere around month 4, something changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't come in a text or a fight or some moment of panic like in the movies. It was slow, like fog rolling in over your life. And by the time I noticed it, I was already lost in it. I stopped thinking of her as the job and started thinking of her as Claire. Just Claire. Not a mark, not a target, not a challenge, a person. She started trusting me with everything. Passwords, childhood secrets, her old sketchbooks, her fears about getting older, her complex relationship with her father, the same man who'd hired me to manipulate her in the first place. She told me he never listened. That he always treated her emotions like weaknesses. That he'd called her fragile in front of a dinner guest once, and she'd never really forgiven him. "I think he wants me to be someone I'm not," she said one night. I stared at her in the dim kitchen light, watching her eat peanut butter straight from the jar in one of my sweaters. And it made me want to scream, because I was being paid to do exactly that. I started saying no to other scams. Emails would come in, referrals from old clients, backdoors into 6-figure frauds, and I'd let them rot in my inbox. I told myself I was too busy. But the truth was simpler. I didn't want to be that person around her anymore. I didn't want the lie bleeding into the parts of my life that started to feel real. I even started using my real name in tiny secret places. Booking train tickets, signing up for free trials, things no one else would see. It felt stupid, but it also felt grounding. Like a breadcrumb trail to the person I used to be. Claire would ask questions sometimes. About my past. Rowan, the fake me, had a backstory, of course. One I'd constructed down to the city blocks and high school mascot. But she didn't want details. She wanted feelings. What were your parents like? Why did you leave Vermont? Did you ever fall in love before me? Those were harder to fake, because feelings weren't part of the script. And that's when I realized I couldn't lie to her much longer. I started writing letters, not to send, just to try to make sense of it all. One of them I wrote after we went to this art exhibit in Boston. She'd spent 15 minutes staring at a painting of a single empty chair. Nothing else. Just shadows and light and absence. "It feels like waiting for someone who'll never come back," she said. That night I wrote, "I think I'm the one who's missing. I think she's waiting for someone I pretended to be. And I don't know if I'll ever be that person again, or if I ever was." I kept that letter in a notebook behind the radiator. Claire almost found it once. I saw her hand brush the edge of it when she was cleaning. I felt my chest close up. But she didn't pull it out. If she had, the whole thing might have ended there. Instead, it ended somewhere else. Or started to. One night, Claire told me she wanted me to meet her mother. Her mom lived in Vermont. Divorced, soft-spoken, loved crossword puzzles and made her own candles. Claire said we could drive up for the weekend, stay at the lake house. It sounded perfect. Too perfect. Because her mom would ask questions, real ones, and I didn't have real answers. I made up an excuse about work, said I couldn't get away. Claire looked disappointed but nodded. "You're still a little mysterious," she said, trying to make a joke of it. But I saw the flicker in her eyes, the first hint of doubt. And that terrified me more than anything else had. That night, I lay awake beside her while she slept. I could feel her breathing on my shoulder, the weight of her leg across mine, the way she murmured in her dreams. And I asked myself a question I hadn't dared to ask until that night. What if I told her the truth? What would happen? Would she scream, cry, hate me, call her father, collapse? Or worse, would she still love me anyway? Would she believe that some part of it, of me, had become real? I didn't know, and that uncertainty was worse than any jail cell I'd ever imagined. The next morning, she made me coffee and kissed me on the cheek and said, "You feel like home to me." And I said nothing, because I didn't know who I was anymore. And I was starting to think she didn't either. Some mornings I woke up as Rowan. Others, I woke up as Ian. And the terrifying part was that I no longer knew which one of them was pretending. Claire's world kept expanding around me. She added me to group texts, introduced me to coworkers, took candid photos of me when I wasn't paying attention, and posted them with captions like, "He reads Vonnegut and makes soup from scratch. I win." Her friends started calling me Ro. I started answering to it without flinching. On the outside, everything looked perfect. But on the inside, my foundation was beginning to buckle. It started with a message from someone I thought I'd erased. An old victim. From a long-dead email chain. A guy named Phil who'd hired me to secure investors for a tech project that never existed. I'd blocked him a year ago, but he found me. Somehow. The subject line just said, "Rowan Ellis, gotcha." The body of the email was a single sentence. "Bet she doesn't know who you really are? Should I ask her?" I stared at the screen so long I forgot to breathe. The email was sent to an old encrypted burner inbox, one I hadn't touched in months. No way he had Claire's info. Yet. But I knew what this meant. The walls were starting to close in. I spent the next few days pretending everything was normal. Brushing Claire's hair off her shoulder. Laughing when she sent me memes. Smiling when she said, "I think my mom really wants to meet you." But behind my eyes, alarms were blaring. What if Phil found her? What if someone followed me? What if Richard Monroe, the man who'd hired me to do this in the first place, found out I hadn't followed through? I was supposed to break her heart. Instead, I'd built a life with her. A fake one. But one I didn't want to lose. It all came to a head at a dinner party. Claire's coworker was turning 30. We went together. There were candles and jazz and too much wine. At one point, someone asked me what I did before I started teaching poetry. I froze for half a second. No one noticed but Claire. Afterward, on the walk home, she asked gently, "Why did you pause when Nia asked about your past?" I laughed it off. Just tired. Didn't expect to talk about my resume tonight. But her expression didn't soften. "You're not telling me something," she said. My throat dried up. She wasn't angry. She wasn't accusatory. Just quietly sad. That made it worse. "I just don't like talking about the old stuff," I mumbled. "It's not interesting, and I'd rather live in the now with you." She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. But something between us shifted, like a thin crack in a windshield, invisible at first, but growing every day. I started watching her sleep again, not in a creepy way, in a desperate way, like I was trying to memorize her before everything fell apart. Then came the second message from Phil. A screenshot of my old fake LinkedIn page. He'd archived it, saved everything. Attached to it was another message. "She deserves to know. TikTok." That night, I smashed my phone against the bathroom sink. It didn't break. I threw it against the wall. Still didn't break. Finally, I sat on the edge of the tub and stared at my reflection for 10 minutes. I looked like Rowan, but all I could see was Ian, the coward, the thief, the man pretending to be the dream boyfriend while lying to the one person who trusted him completely. The next morning, Claire sat on the edge of the bed and said, "I think you're lying to me." And just like that, the bottom dropped out of everything. There's a silence people don't talk about. Not the kind after a fight or before someone cries, but the kind that creeps into a room like smoke when someone you love has seen through you. That morning, Claire looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time, and she didn't like what she saw. "I think you're lying to me." 6 words, softly spoken. No yelling, no slamming of doors. She didn't even sound angry, just tired. Like the version of me she'd built in her head was beginning to crumble, and she wasn't sure she had the strength to hold it up anymore. I opened my mouth, closed it. What could I say? That I was a con artist? That her father had paid me to break her? That the person she'd fallen in love with was as fake as the author quotes I'd recited to win her over? Instead, I did what liars do best. I stalled. "Why would you say that?" She didn't blink. "You pause when I ask about your past. You get vague when I talk about Vermont. You've met everyone in my life, but I know nothing about yours." Her voice didn't rise. That made it worse. "I just don't like talking about Ian." That stopped me cold. She had never called me that. Not once. Rowan, babe, sweetheart, love, but never Ian. I swallowed hard. "What?" She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a piece of folded paper, laid it on the table. It was the letter, the one I'd written months ago and hidden behind the radiator. The one that started with, "I think I'm the one who's missing." I'd forgotten she was curious, that she noticed things, that when she loved someone, she studied them, deeply, kindly, and thoroughly. She'd found it while dusting. Hadn't opened it at first. But something had gnawed at her. She read it 2 days ago and waited to see what I'd do. I said nothing. Because what do you say when your secret has already been found? "I don't know who you are," she said, "but I know you're not who you said you were." Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't blink them away. "I need you to tell me the truth, Rowan, or Ian, or whoever the hell you are." It would have been easy to lie, to spin some desperate version of the truth, a new story, cleaner than the old ones. But I was too tired, too hollowed out by the guilt. So I told her. Everything. I started with the scams, the fake name, the fake job. I told her about the resume frauds, the crypto lies, The girl in Portland I'd ghosted after taking her money. I told her about the burner phones, the offshore wallets, the 2 years I spent living in hotels under names that weren't mine. And then I told her the worst part, that her father had hired me to seduce her, to make her fall in love, to break her so she would never trust another man again. I will never forget the look on her face. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was betrayal layered on betrayal. Like her entire emotional world had caved in on itself. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just nodded. Once, and said, "Get out." I tried to speak, to explain, to tell her I had fallen for her. Really fallen. Not as part of the job, not as part of the scam, but like my soul had been waiting for her and didn't even know it. But she held up her hand. No more lies. I'm not lying. She gave me a look I'll never forget. The look of someone who wants to believe you, but no longer knows how. "Even if you're telling the truth now," she whispered, "it's too late." I left, quietly. Didn't take anything but my coat and wallet. The apartment smelled like her shampoo and coffee grounds and the candles she liked. Lavender and cedar and peace I would never have again. I walked 3 miles in the rain before I realized I didn't even have a place to go. That night, I checked the burner inbox. One new message. From Richard Monroe. "She told me, you were warned." I expected silence, maybe threats, maybe lawyers, maybe Richard Monroe showing up with that quiet menace again. Gloves on, calm voice, destroying me with a single line. But I didn't expect what actually happened. I didn't expect Claire to come find me. It was 2 days after she kicked me out. I'd been crashing in a sad motel off I-95, the kind of place where the wallpaper peels and the vending machine eats your quarters. I hadn't showered, barely eaten, just stared at the walls and thought about the look on her face when I told her the truth. Then there was a knock at the door. For a second, I thought maybe it was Richard, or the police. But when I opened it, there she was. Claire, soaked from the rain, pale, hair clinging to her cheeks. No umbrella. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me. And I saw it, behind the exhaustion and betrayal, something else. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But control. Like she knew something I didn't. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked past me like she'd done it 1,000 times, even in this place she'd never been. She sat down on the edge of the bed, crossed her arms, and stared. And then she said something that turned everything inside out. I knew. The words hit me like a punch. "You." "What?" She looked straight at me. Not at first, but I started suspecting months ago. Something about the way you always had the perfect answer. The way you never slipped. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small leather notebook. It was mine, but not one I remembered losing. She flipped it open and read, "Become what she needs. Make her love you, make it real. And when it's over, walk away clean." I felt the blood drain from my face. She kept reading. "The worst part is, I think I'm starting to believe it myself. I found this 2 weeks ago," she said, "before I confronted you." My mouth opened, closed. "But why didn't you?" "Because I wanted to see if you'd tell me on your own," she said. "I wanted to believe you might, that maybe some part of it wasn't fake." She stood and walked to the window, arms folded tightly across her chest. "My father's been controlling me since I was 10, she said. "He's always tried to fix me, with tutors, therapists, relationships. Everything's been a project to him, a problem to solve." Her voice cracked, but she kept talking. "When I was 17, I tried to run away. Got halfway to New York before he found me. He didn't yell, didn't cry, just said, 'One day, you'll thank me.'" She turned back toward me. This was supposed to be his final move, his big lesson. His "I told you so." I sat down slowly. The bed creaked. "And yet you stayed," I said. "Even after you knew." She nodded once. "Because I needed to know if you were better than him. If you could change." I looked at her, soaked and tired and blazing with something more honest than I'd ever earned in my life. "You deserved better," I said. "I still do," she replied. Silence settled between us. But it wasn't the same silence from before. This one invited truth. So I gave it. "I fell in love with you, Claire. Not the version I created, not the mark. You, the real you." Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. She just said, "Then prove it." She reached into her coat again, tossed a flash drive onto the bed. "What's this?" "Everything," she said. "Every file my father gave you, every surveillance photo, every journal entry, every sick little detail he paid you to study." My jaw clenched. "How did you—" "I hacked him," she said. I blinked. "You hacked your billionaire father." She gave me a grim smile. "Don't let the soft sweaters fool you." I stared at the flash drive. "You want me to—" "What?" "Leak it?" "I want you to expose him," she said. "Publicly. All of it. Let the world see the man behind the mask. That won't win you his approval." She stepped closer. "I'm not trying to win anymore. I'm done playing victim. I want to take him down, but I can't do it without you." I stood up. "Close now." "If I do this," I said, "there's no going back. I know. He'll come after us." She met my eyes. "Then let's make it worth it." The internet never forgets. That's what Claire said the night we uploaded the files. It was a quiet, calculated detonation. A 96-page dossier compiled by her, edited by me, and posted across half a dozen burner accounts on Twitter, Reddit, Substack, and one anonymous Medium article titled, "How a Billionaire Paid to Break His Own Daughter the Monroe File." It included surveillance photos, emails between Richard and me, payment confirmations, excerpts from the journal entries he'd stolen from Claire and handed to me like cheat codes. No embellishment, no drama, just facts and truth. The kind of truth that burns everything it touches. By the next morning, it had over 300,000 views. By the next night, it was on BuzzFeed, then CNN, then everywhere. People couldn't believe it at first. Richard Monroe, philanthropist, tech giant, the man who gave $15 million to cancer research, hiring someone to gaslight and emotionally manipulate his own daughter? It sounded like fiction. But the receipts were there, signed, time-stamped, and real. He didn't deny it. Not immediately. He disappeared from public life for 48 hours. When he returned, it was with a carefully worded legal statement. "I acted out of misguided love. My daughter has struggled with boundaries, and I believed I was protecting her." Translation: I don't regret it. Just that I got caught. That week, Claire and I moved out of Boston. Not because we were afraid, not exactly, but because everything familiar was now contaminated. The bookstore where we met. The cafe where we shared Rilke quotes. The sidewalk where she once took my hand and said I made her feel like a story worth reading. It all belonged to the lie now. We needed new air. We drove north, rented a one-bedroom place on the Maine coast. Furnishings were cheap. The heat clicked and buzzed at night. But we slept. Deeply. Together. The news cycle moved on faster than we expected. Within 2 weeks, Monroe's name was being buried under newer scandals. A senator caught laundering money, a celebrity divorce, some international tech merger that distracted the public with stock graphs and billionaire beef. But the damage was done. Richard's board voted him out. He lost 2 major clients. His name started showing up in psychology blogs and undergrad essays titled things like Toxic Paternalism and Generational Trauma. Claire told me she didn't feel satisfied. I thought I'd feel clean, she said one morning over burnt toast. But it just feels over. I nodded. I understood. Because shame doesn't vanish just because the truth is public. Some parts of you stay stained, no matter how many times you wash your hands. One night, I found her standing on the back porch, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the stars. "Do you still love me?" she asked without looking. I walked to her, rested my chin on her shoulder. "Yes." She turned to face me. She turned to, "But do you think I can ever love you fully, knowing how we began?" It hurt, because the honest answer was, I didn't know. So I said the only real thing I could. I don't need you to forget what I did. I just need you to believe I'm not that man anymore. She searched my face for a long time and said, "Then stop running. Tell the whole truth, all of it, to everyone." That weekend, I posted on Reddit, on our confession, the same post you read in Chapter 0, the one that said, "I, 34M, cheated for money and fell in love with my own lie." I used my real name, Ian March. Not Rowan, not Ethan, just me. It wasn't viral, not at first, but it reached people, victims, strangers. Even one man, Phil, the guy I scammed 5 years earlier, who messaged me, "You destroyed me, but I appreciate the apology. Doesn't fix anything, but it's a start." I read that message 100 times. Didn't reply. Didn't need to. Claire and I spent a lot of time just sitting. No TV. No noise. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't scream or accuse or burn. The kind that lets you breathe. One night, she looked at me with that old softness again. Like maybe, just maybe, she still saw something worth saving inside me. And she whispered, almost like a secret, "I'm pregnant." When she told me she was pregnant, I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I didn't say, "Are you sure?" Or, "That's amazing," like they do in the movies. I just froze, like every cell in my body locked up at once. Because here was something real, unshakably, terrifyingly real. And I didn't know if I deserved it. Claire didn't rush me. She didn't lecture or beg or storm off. She just let the silence hang between us while the wind rustled the pine trees outside our little rental house on the coast. Then she went to bed without another word. I sat on the porch for 2 hours. Didn't check my phone. Didn't drink. Just stared at the ocean and wondered if I was about to ruin someone else's life the way I had so many others. The next day, I asked her if she'd considered other options. Her face darkened. "I'm keeping it," she said. "I'm not telling you not to," I replied, careful, small. I don't want to be my father. Or yours." She softened a little. "I know." I stepped closer. "I don't want this baby to grow up wondering what's real." "Then don't lie," she said. We started going to therapy, together, then separately. I told the therapist everything, not just about Claire, but about the first scam, the rush, the reasons, the parts that still made my stomach churn with guilt, and the parts I still secretly missed. "I don't know who I am without the con," I admitted once. The therapist just nodded and said, "Then it's time to build someone else." I got a real job. Part-time at first, bookkeeping for a local farm collective. Honest work, low pay, but clean. No fake names, no scripts, no disappearing when things got hard. It felt like punishment at first. Then it started to feel like penance. Then, slowly, like peace. Claire stayed with me, not out of obligation, not out of fear, because she saw something worth staying for, even if it was still covered in ash. She taught online writing classes, kept painting, grew tomatoes in mismatched pots behind the house, talked to our baby every morning like it could hear her. We named her before we saw her. Lena, short for Helena, her grandmother's name. Richard tried to reach out, through lawyers, through private investigators, through a letter, hand-delivered by some go-between with dead eyes and expensive shoes. Claire didn't open it. She burned it. Standing in the yard, pregnant belly under a heavy coat, watching the paper curl and blacken like old leaves. "Goodbye," she whispered. And that was the end of him. I started writing again. Not letters this time, a book, a memoir of sorts. Not for profit, not for a publisher. For Lena. So that when she grew up and asked who her father was, I wouldn't need to invent a fairy tale. I could hand her the truth, raw and broken and honest. She could choose for herself who I really was. Claire went into labor on a Tuesday. Rainy. Quiet. The kind of day where the sky feels heavy but calm. 16 hours later, Lena Monroe March came into the world. 7 pounds, blue eyes. Cried like she already knew we didn't have all the answers. When the nurse handed her to me, something inside me snapped. But not like before. Not like guilt or shame or fear. Like something released. The armor, maybe. The lies. The need to control the narrative. All of it. Gone. Just me. Holding the one thing I'd never scammed, never earned, never deserved, but was willing to spend the rest of my life becoming worthy of. Claire looked over from the hospital bed. "You okay?" I nodded, eyes full. "For the first time," I said, "I think I might be." Lena was 3 months old when I got the email. Subject line, "We know who you are." No body text, no signature, no attachments, just that. At first I thought it was a joke, or some leftover remnant of my past, one of the many ghosts I'd buried under false names and deleted files. But then another came, then 2 more. Then a message posted anonymously under a news article I hadn't even realized was about me. Once a liar, always a liar. It hit me harder than I expected. I thought I'd outrun it. I thought coming clean, really clean, would be enough. But the thing about lies is that even when they're over, the echo lingers. The internet forgets fast, but some people don't forget at all, especially the ones you hurt. I didn't tell Claire about the emails at first, not because I wanted to hide them, because I didn't want her to feel like she had to protect me. She was finally smiling again, painting again, sleeping when Lena let her. I couldn't drag her back into my shame. So I sat on the porch after midnight with the baby monitor on and reread the messages like they were punishment, because maybe they were. And maybe I deserved them. One night, I got one that was different, from a name I recognized. Marcy P. Portland. Self-publishing client. One of the first people I truly, knowingly, shamelessly scammed. I hadn't thought of her in years. Her message was short. "I saw your post. I hated you for a long time. I still kind of do. But I also needed to say, I'm glad you told the truth. I hope it hurts, but I hope it heals too." That's when I realized something I hadn't before. Redemption isn't a switch you flip. It's a road you walk. And some days, you limp. Claire eventually found out about the emails. She noticed the way I kept checking my phone, the way I went quiet when it buzzed. She didn't get angry. She just held my face in her hands and said, "They don't get to define you. Only you do." And I believed her, because she'd seen me at my worst. And stayed. Not because she was weak, but because she was strong enough to see who I could be, not just who I had been. So I finished the book, my memoir. I called it The Lie I Fell in Love With. I didn't sell it, didn't promote it, didn't even upload it anywhere public, just printed one copy, bound it, wrapped it in brown paper, and mailed it to one person, Richard Monroe. No letter, no note, just the story. His story, Claire's story, my story. The whole brutal truth. Because sometimes, the final act of healing is giving your demons a mirror. He never replied. That was fine. It wasn't for him. It was for me. Lena turns 1 next month. She laughs like thunder, eats blueberries like their currency, and looks at me like I'm the only man in the world she's ever trusted. Every time she takes my hand, I feel the old weight, the one I earned, lift just a little. Not gone, but lighter. And one day, when she's old enough to ask where I came from, who I really was, I'll tell her. Everything. The lies, the money, the scam that became a life, and how her mother saved me by refusing to let a monster love her quietly. You want a neat ending? I don't have one. I still get emails sometimes. I still think about the people I hurt. But I also kiss my daughter goodnight, hold my wife's hand when she's falling asleep, and remind myself every day that the person I pretended to be once, kind, steady, honest, isn't a fantasy anymore. He's me. Finally.